Welcome, everybody, to the Downright Capable Show, changing the way others view Down syndrome. My name is Brian Herndon, and I'm here with my co-host, Marla Marasco. Before we get started, just want to remind those that are watching on the replay that you can still comment, and please share the show with others that can benefit from the information we're going to discuss today. Marla, I'm super excited to talk about this, although it's a little outside my comfort zone because we're not quite ready for it. But will you introduce our guest today and the topic? I'm really excited.
Right. Yeah. Well, Brian, it's right around the corner.
I know. I'm not ready. I
know. Okay. Well, let me introduce you to our guest. This is my friend, Paula Collins. I have been trying to bring Paula onto the show for quite some time now, and we finally have her attention. Yay. Thank goodness. Paula is the Assistant Vice President of Fitchburg Employment. Her staff works with people who have barriers to employment to help them develop skills to find and keep a job, as well as job coaching at work sites. Welcome, Paula. So great to have you. She is a mother of two boys, one who happens to have an extra chromosome, Tucker. He's recently transitioned from high school to an adult program. She also sits on the board of directors for the Stepping Stone Theater, which is an inclusive theater company right here in Massachusetts. And whatever time she has left to herself, she spends at the lake. And I have personally met Tucker myself, and he's such an awesome guy. He's very, very creative. So Paula, welcome very much. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Speaking of the man, he is right now calling me from his lunch hour. So I apologize for looking away from the screen, but I was trying to just...
That's okay. It's real life. It's live. It's a live show.
Yeah. Checking in with mom.
Awesome. Well, Paula, so I understand you're going to talk to us today about how parents can change their mindset in middle school on thinking about what will my child do after high school, which seems a little freaky to me because we both have middle schoolers here. But it might
take a breath. It's going to come up fast.
Oh, I know. It might be tough to plan for a goal that you're not sure if your child wants. So thinking about that middle school age, I don't really know what my son wants to be. I mean, he still wants to be all these dream things and who knows what. So what is your best advice for this?
So I think you just said it. Dream big, right? Let them keep dreaming. That's what it's about. I mean, so my mantra is always begin with the end in mind. So you cannot get to a goal if you're not trying to get there. Our vision statement for Tucker was always that he be independent and not need services. That's our goal. Yeah. If we don't get there, we don't get there. If we do then we do. But if I say I want him to, work the recycling center, then that's what he's going to do is work the recycling center. And that may be what he wants to do. And that's great if that's what he wants to do. But I want to be sure that he's doing that because he's looked at everything else, so that's his choice, not that's the only thing he knows, but that's what he decides he wants to do. And we've seen that with some of our older clients here, that they love what they do, but then I'm like, well, did you ever, whatever? And they're like, no, but I love my job. It's like, all right, well, if you love your job, that's fine, but let's just talk, if you ever want to look at other things, that's what we want to do. So with middle schoolers, it's tough to be a middle schooler. It's tough for anybody to be a middle schooler. I'm not going back to middle school, right?
Right.
So when you think about middle school, it's really trying to focus on the things that they're doing well. Like, what are they interested in? And start to pay attention to that. Because I think when we have kids with disabilities, we're so focused on what they can't do and what are we putting in the IEP and what skills are we working on that we forget about what they can do and giving them credit for that and really paying attention to what that might lead to.
That's good.
Right.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it's hard to... We do get, even as parents, I think sometimes we get focused on, can't do this. And we need to think about those things because we want to improve those.
Right.
Like my son still has trouble tying his shoes. At some point, he needs to figure this out, obviously. But, I love that idea. If you look at those things they do well and maybe kind of help them go into that direction, that might be really good. I appreciate that.
So I can tell you, I have a 28-year-old that's a lefty that hates tying his shoes, and to this day wears Vans and slip-on dress shoes. So
there you go.
I would not obsess over that one. That's his.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point too.
We do Velcro shoes.
Velcro is hip. It's all right.
Yeah, we get so hung up on that stuff. And it's like, you know what, at this point, there's so many other things we need to address. And tying our shoes. I mean, how many kids have tied their shoes? Even my husband, he walks around, his shoelaces are flopping all over.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember when Tucker was wearing shorts to school all the time, and they were like, he's not appropriate for the weather. I'm like, have you looked in the middle school?
Exactly.
Because half the boys are wearing shorts in February.
Exactly.
So no, I'm not going to yell at him for wearing shorts. I don't care if he wears shorts.
It's age appropriate
curriculum because he's comfortable. We're good. He's wearing shorts.
It's age appropriate. That's what I like to say, right?
Right. Well, we want them to be age appropriate until they are age appropriate, right?
Right.
Until they do stuff that a regular middle schooler would do, and then we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, upskill, mastered, self-advocacy, mastered, check. You know.
Well, I do want to let everybody know too, Paula did create a presentation for us. So Paula, if you need me to shoot that up on the screen, let me know because I do have it accessible. So I just wanted to let you know that. But what as parents can we do during like that transition IEP meeting to start preparing for what life looks like after high school?
So one of the things that I always did in my IEP meeting was bring things that my son does, right? I know for you, Marla, like you guys travel all the time. He's been all over the place. It's important for teachers to see that. No, he is not in his room just watching TV or cartoons or whatever. He's out in the world. He's playing basketball. He's playing soccer. He's taking his photos. I always brought to my IEP meeting a picture book of things that we did. Because my kid's been to 20-something states in the Union, right? He's been to Portugal. He's been to Aruba. He's a lucky guy. He lives a pretty sweet life right now.
Nice.
But they see him as, he can't sit still. Well, I can't sit still either. Hello. He's not, apple tree.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, Paula, because one of the things that I did bring up when we got home, because we were just in Marco Island for winter break. And, Jacob has his iPhone and there's not a lot that he can do. It's the essentials, quite honestly. And it was like Friday, we were leaving the next day, and there was one spot in the hotel that I was like, I'm going to get our picture there. I'm going to get our picture there. And literally it's Friday. Yeah. So I said to my husband, we're going to go get our picture there. And him and I went to the spot, and Jacob went to the elevator and got on. And I was like, where's Jacob? And he's like, apparently he got on the elevator. So I'm like, okay, don't panic, right? So I start to get my phone out because we have the GPS tracker on the phone. He's calling Dad, going, Dad, where are you?
Right. I'm on the elevator. What'd you guys do? Right.
And my husband's like, where are you? Stay there. So he didn't panic. He instantly knew to call us. And it was, he's only got a couple numbers. So it was a quick, let's dial Dad. And I was really proud of him because that was a moment in time where you don't really practice, but you do. You know what I mean? And it was actually real life. He got on the elevator and we went the other direction. So
when you're talking about what can I do with my middle schooler, that's exactly it. Maybe give them opportunities to do that. We're going to the lobby. Do you want to take the stairs or the elevator?
Yeah.
And let them practice. It's also celebrating that little success, right? And write it down. Because when you go to your IEP, all they're talking about is you can't do this, you can't do that, right? And you're like, oh, this is the most depressing day ever. I hate going to IEP.
Yes.
I always insist, can you start by telling me 3 skills he does have right now?
Nice.
Can you tell me something that he did that was great in the last month? I don't care what it is. I don't care if you tell me he opened the door for the teacher, but give me something positive, right? Because the hardest thing about transition is when you're moving from can't to can, right? Mm-hmm. We're focusing, when you get to the end of the line here at 22, okay, we already know all the things that they can't do. I wouldn't even say they can't do it. I would say things they need support with or they're still developing.
Right.
And then where we're focusing on is these are the skills they do have. And then what job uses those skills? And you'd be surprised at how many skills your kid have now that you start to pay attention.
Yeah. Those are really good tips there. So actually, when you're sitting in that IEP meeting, because it's literally next month for me from a transition 14 perspective, can you share with the audience, are there any particular forms that we need to either ask about, don't sign, do sign, because I know we're right now switching over to that transition and there may be some forms that none of us are really even aware of.
So it really is that you're adding, there should be a transition plan in your IEP now. You want to make sure that there are social skill goals in there or those deficits. The trend right now is to have kids graduate and walk with their class at 18, and then they're like, okay, you're good to go, especially if they've passed MCAS. It's not always usually the case for us with Down syndrome, but some kids can do that. You want to make sure there's goals in there. That's the other stuff.
Right.
That you need, right? Because then you can say, well, no, I'm not going to take the diploma at 18. I'm going to defer it to 22 because we still have all this other stuff to work on. When I talk to employees for all of my candidates, the first thing they say is, I want somebody that's willing to work and that will show up, right? But the most important skill they're looking for is somebody that can think outside the box, somebody that's creative. Think about our kids. Think about your kid. And right now, today, what do they have to do to get through a day?
Yeah.
There's a lot of creative skills in people with disabilities just to keep up every single day, right? So they already have one of the most important things that employers want. Now we just need to figure out what are those other skills and where were they going to go. The only other form you need to know about is called a 688 referral. And that's a referral to DDS, but it typically doesn't happen until like 18, 19, maybe even 20, because that's the referral that switches them into the adult services.
Okay.
You do also have to apply for adult services, which is important. And then the other thing I think to be aware of is that when they turn 18, if you're talking about guardianship, even if it's shared decision making, you need to get that going. Really, you need to start thinking about it at 17. And then it's like 17 and a half. You have to have all my head just went, all the sort of the paperwork that you have to get done, the neuropsych or whatever, because it has to be certainly within 6 months. So there's a timeline there. It's not really 18. You kind of have to back it up to 17 so that you hit those time frames.
Yeah, really, really good advice.
Will a team, parents, I'm thinking, I don't even know what all that is. And some of that may be state specific, and so we would ask our various states. But I mean, are those things that your special ed teacher or whoever's leading the meeting, are those things they're going to talk about and say, yes, we need to do this?
They should, but you want to at least know that they exist. Even if you're not quite sure what it is, you could probably go in Massachusetts, you go to mass.gov and look up the 688 referral and what that form looks like and what that means. But, being aware and knowing what you don't know that's the scariest thing, right? For all of us, like, what don't I know that I don't know that afterwards I'm going to be like, oh, shoot, right? And so just at least knowing the terms, and if I acronym out, then just stop me and make me spell it out, because once you're in this world, it's just second nature to throw out those little numbers. And I do want the pictures you see behind me actually are Tucker's work. My guy is a photographer, and he took those when we were in DC, actually, Marla, and that's the cherry blossoms. And that we've just been encouraging him to just take out the camera everywhere he goes. And it started when he was 10. He was sitting in the back of the car, and we handed him a camera because he was bored and he was driving us crazy. And figured out it's digital, we'll just delete it when we get to the hotel. And then we got to the hotel and looked at what was on the camera, and we were like, okay, I think we just got it. I think we just figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, so let's go with that. So you kind of did this because, like you said, he was kind of annoying me in the back seat, so I gave him a camera, or my phone or whatever. And so you start to look at him and go, wow, these are good. So how did you, well, one, did anyone at Tucker's High School encourage his passion for photography? And then was he involved in certain clubs? And then how did that factor into the IEP and working with his team?
So Marla, maybe throw up that talent meets opportunity slide. So we struggled at school to get them to get it, frankly. I think there's a million opportunities for a kid who wants to be a photographer at school, right? There's newspaper, there's
yearbook.
Yearbook. There's the fact that they have a TV studio at his high school that was right there on the wall. That they didn't utilize. So we really struggled to get them to do it.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to figure out how to, hold on.
I think it's like the fourth or fifth one down there. Anyway, so we just kept giving him the camera. Everywhere we went,
Right.
we handed him a camera and just let him do it. So I think really, it's really about, opportunity, just throwing those opportunities.
Well, folks, sometimes we deal with technology issues and
Brian?
Yeah.
She's there. You might not be able to see her. Yeah. It's kind of weird since we're sharing the screen. So
yeah. Do we need to take that down?
Yeah, let me take that down, Paula, because I just don't want to obviously.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to lose you. Okay.
So for us, we just, every time we were somewhere, we give him the camera. I'll say to him, what do you want to do? Now he's shooting with everything. He's shooting with his iPhone. He's shooting with a camera. He's using all different mediums. Now he's getting more interested in film. His brother's a filmmaker, so he wants to do what his big brother does. So
can you hear Marla?
He did take a cable class in high school. He did get the opportunity to go to the cable station and take a class there. And he did go to photography club, but they were really talking about photos, which he's not interested in. He was more interested in let's just do it. Let me show you what I got.
Sorry, Paula, I'm trying to get Brian back in. Because I can hear you. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the end there.
Okay. I was basically saying that he did take a class at school. We were able to put something together with the local cable station for him to do that. And then he did go to the photography club, but it wasn't really a club where I thought they were going to do let's go out and shoot this, or let's go as a group and do some stuff. And they really didn't. They were just kind of talking about photos, which he wasn't really interested in. So he didn't last long.
There you go, Brian.
All right, there we go. Sorry.
Welcome back.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, and it's funny that you should say that, because I know you did talk about clubs and everything. And the one question I have for you is, because I said this to Brian a few times, is that to me, when I get Jacob involved in school, outside of school, like the clubs you're talking about. Yeah. So he just finished being the manager of the 8th grade basketball team. And I've always said to Brian, I'm actually building his resume.
Oh, yeah.
They still need our kids still need a resume or some portfolio, especially if they are going to go on to post-secondary, or maybe they might use that for a job. Is that something that you can encourage parents to start thinking about?
I think so. We use a visual resume, which is basically a PowerPoint of all the things he is and does. I think
that's a good idea.
It's the nice thing about a visual resume, and some people even do digital resumes with video, is that it takes out that stigma of, well, you're telling me you can do this, but I don't know if you can, because you're seeing him do it. You're looking at the picture of him in the kitchen marinating chicken.
Yeah.
You are looking at him shooting a photo on the Washington Monument. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, so that they can see, for an employer especially that may not have that vision, that this person can do what I'm telling you they're going to do. And that's, I think, the other thing, when you're looking at jobs, I'm not asking you, could you please take him? I'm saying, I'm giving you a person that's talented, that has this skill. Either you're going to get him or someone else is going to be lucky enough to get him. But this is who I'm handing you. I'm not giving you someone that can't do the job. When you just asked something else in that question, and now I got to go back. I lost what I was going to say.
Well, I know, we're talking about jobs and coaches and stuff. So do families need to ask for a job coach when they're in the IEP team meeting, or when does that kind of come into play, like a job coach?
So a job coach would come into play when you're an adult. You would at school hopefully have internships and volunteer opportunities, the things that Brian was talking about earlier about maybe you're doing the recycling or doing jobs around school. Typically the progression with schools will be you'll do an in-building job so they can kind of see how you work and if you're going to stay on task and if you can be professional before they take you to an outside site and say, okay, now we're gonna see if you can transfer those skills out of a familiar setting into a setting that you don't know. And there's obvious job coaches in terms of the teachers in that situation. Yeah. Then once you're an adult, you would probably have a job coach. You may have a short-term job coach. You may have a long-term job coach. It just depends on where you end up.
Yeah. And so then with that said, then are you working with the IEP team to change the goals more towards job skills, life skills, as opposed to academic?
Well, that's that transition piece, right? Yeah. That transition piece that you're going to add to your IEP is all about what do you want to work on? What are you looking for this year? It's not an either or. I mean, let's face it, there's only so many hours in the day. For me, I don't care if my kid knows world history. I care that he can balance a checkbook. Right. I don't care if he ever knows where Mesopotamia was. It's not going to be relevant in his life, right? So I'll happily take him out of that class to do something else. But it is a balance because there's only so many hours in the day, and it's really personal. Every kid is different. Your student being in the school musical is going to teach him maybe more than if he sat in world history, right? Or geometry, because that's math skills are typically not our guy's strength. Right. So you want them to have some practical skills, and that's really a personal choice. It's a family choice. There may be things that you're doing at home. I know you do a lot of things around the house with showing Jacob how to do some of those everyday skills. A lot of parents don't do that. They want that during the school day. Well, if you're going to put it in the school day, you're going to have to compromise something else. So it's really just a matter of choice, and because of such a wide range of capability too. Let's be honest that some kids, they made the recycling may be the best job ever for them, and that may be the best they can do, and they love it, and that's fine. Other kids may be like, I want to go to college like my brother, right? And so I need to, or my sister, and so I need to know what those college programs look for. If that's something, I think it's really knowing kind of what's out there is important, so then you can backtrack into where do I need to be now to get him there by the time he's done.
Yeah. And I think, Paula, I know that we've gone as, the Massachusetts Congress delegation, whatever the heck you want to call it, to go speak to our congressmen and our state representatives. And I know that every time either I've spoken or someone else has spoken, Jacob is like, is it my turn? Is it my turn? Yeah. And it's gotten to the point where I've spoken to his speech therapist to say, we now need to really start focus on public speaking for Jacob. To your point, they may want to get up and tell about themselves one day, right?
Yeah,
but that situation.
A couple of things. Tucker's speech is not wonderful, and but he has been doing more and more public speaking again, really more and more confident doing it. It's really cool. We actually last weekend spoke to a group of students at Fitchburg State, future middle school teachers. This presentation that you were talking about that's what we did that for, was for future teachers. And he was like, okay, I'm in. And whereas, a year ago, he would have been like, I don't know if I want to say anything.
Right.
And he loves to do the legislative stuff. And so I let him speak as much as he wants to. We typically let them go first. And if I have to interpret along the way and repeat what he's saying so they get it, I repeat it. If not, or we use visuals that they can see it, and then I'll say, oh, well, he's describing whatever. I'll just back it up. But let them do it, because why not? Because honestly, for people with disabilities, their chances of getting a job because they filled out an application online is not how it's going to go.
Right.
It's about us thinking about, who do I know?
Right.
What's the skill they have? How can I match them up to that? And how am I going to make that work? So networking skills, interpersonal skills, those are the skills they need, because that's what's going to get them there. That's what's going to get that job. Whether that job is doing that kind of thing or something completely different, they're still going to have to get there that way.
Well, they have to get it in the door, right? That's any kid get in the door.
And those are rare skills. I'll tell you that right now. I run a high school program, and we work with kids with disabilities. And you just need to have a disability to qualify. And we work on 5 different things: self-advocacy, work readiness training, on-the-job training, post-secondary exploration, and I always forget one, and I don't know what it is right now off the top of my head. But when I think about the skills that we're working on, like every single high schooler I know needs these skills. So our kids, by getting access to this program now, and it's through Mass Rehab, and every high school has it, which if you're going into 14, I would ask about PREETs and who the PREETs provider is, because that's the program. And every single high school has a partnered agency that MRC has assigned. And we could work on those self-advocacy skills all year. And it's still enough.
When you say pre-ed, what does that mean again?
It's PREETs, PREETS.
Okay.
So it's pre-employment training services.
Okay.
And where Mass Rehab has assigned every single school an agency to like us to work with their students. We do that in different ways at different schools. In some schools we're there an hour a week, and we do an 8-week block on one of the subjects, and then we move on. In some of the schools we're doing workshops. Over February vacation, we took students to Job Corps, Porter and Chester, and Fitchburg State, so they could see 3 different kinds of post-secondary experiences. And it was an awesome week. It was so fun. They got really good, I think, array of things that are possible. And there were a couple kids that came out at the end of the week and said, I never thought about college before, but now I didn't really want to think about how I'm going to do it, which was cool. And at the college, we also asked the disability services to present, because it's important for kids to know the difference in disability services in college versus high school. In college, it's all self-driven.
Right.
You have to go to them. You have to identify if you're having a problem with a professor. You have to initiate. And that's very different. So again, those self-advocacy skills, self-advocacy. I can't say that enough.
That's actually good to hear.
Yeah. That's and like you said, that's appropriate for all kids. I mean, really, they have to begin to advocate for themselves regardless of disability status. Absolutely.
And it's tough for anybody to do it, right? As adults, it's hard to advocate for yourself when things aren't going right, or
sometimes,
and a lot of kids don't. It's different for people with Down syndrome because they're self-disclosing the minute you look at them, right? So that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because there's sometimes, there's some things that they get cut some slack on, but it's a bad thing because a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm like, oh, nothing. What? He's right here. People will talk to me and I'll be like,
I hate that. That drives me absolutely nuts.
Right. My dad doesn't typically stand for it. He's me with the wild card. So, that's always, or he'll be like, okay, then I'm not answering, and he won't do anything, and he'll just let me talk for him. So, but again, I think it's opportune. Talent meets opportunity. It's being creative. It's really paying attention to those things that they're doing that you don't even realize are skills until you go, oh, wait a minute. Did he just put that away by himself? Did he just empty the dishwasher without me telling him? Did he just make that bed? All those things are skills. And so it's really trying to shift as parents your head out of can't to can.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. So let's talk a minute, Paula. Just so one of the things, Marla and I are both pretty passionate about just making sure our kids are fully included in the academic world, in the social world, things like that. So thinking about those experiences of creating work experiences at school, you've talked about, tapping into that and helping to develop that. What are some experiences that would be really valuable for our kids while still maintaining that feeling of inclusion, and not just, all the kids with special needs are doing the coffee cart, but maybe being more inclusive in that? Like how do we navigate both of those worlds? Because obviously our kids are kind of doing a little bit of a different track because everyone else is taking, calculus and physics. Yeah. How do we do both?
Well, I think that's a big challenge, because now you're talking about shifting a culture in a school, right? To say this isn't just for our kids. This coffee cart is something that everybody uses. So why don't we have students who are thinking about, maybe there's an entrepreneur club that we can connect with the coffee cart to say, this is a little business. How would you run it? Or what would you do differently? And that they can sort of do some more integration, because there are no more sheltered workshops. They are gone. There are no businesses that are just people with disabilities. And you're seeing a lot of disability-owned businesses, Coletti's Cookies, Biddy and Bows, right? But they cannot have 100% people with disabilities either. That's segregation. It's a segregated workforce. For me personally, there's a balance there between, to get kids from I've never worked to I'm in a full competitive employment situation. And some of them will always need some kind of supported employment, is what they call it, when it's a group and they're not one-on-one. They're not, they have a job coach all the time at work. And some kids will make it out of that. And some kids, that's going to be their work world, but it's still work. And I think, when we think about work is not just about a paycheck. It's fun to have a paycheck, But
paycheck's so nice.
but some of our kids don't understand that. I mean, my kid's like, it doesn't matter whether he gets a check for 50 cents or $500. He's like, I got a check.
Yeah.
Right. And so he doesn't really get the value of money, but what he does get is the value of worth and the value of confidence that he's doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Right. Mom works, dad works, my sister works, my neighbors work, I go to work.
Yeah.
And when we transitioned to the adult program, that was one of the things that was really hard is he was working 3 days a week, 4 hours a day at a, in a kitchen. And now he's not. Now he's in this program and they're trying to figure out what matches. And I think, the advice I would give to parents and to teachers is when they say, we're going to try a whole bunch of things. If there are things your kid doesn't want to do, you don't need to try it.
Yeah.
I don't ever need to have my kid work for a landscaper or a greenhouse or any of that because he hates plants and he hates dirt.
And he doesn't
my kid too. He hates it.
22 years does not touch the leaf. When you make him hold the bag in the fall, you think you were, asking him to do brain surgery. He's like, oh, I can't do it.
Right.
I still make my kid go out and help me with the lawn, but yeah.
But I do want him to experience different things too, because he is a guy that will say, no, I'm good. I don't want to do that. And then once he does it, he's excited.
Yeah.
So there is pushing him a little bit out of the comfort zone, but then there's also not wasting time on things that you just plain.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Right.
You have a kid that's been since a baby, freaks out every time they're dirty.
Right.
We're not having them paint, it just doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's funny too. I keep going back to this, manager of the 8th grade basketball team idea because, it was an awesome experience for Jacob this year, but we started that last year and it was not an awesome experience.
Right.
I remember that.
It was light years from what it was last year to this year. But when we didn't give up, we asked again, even though they were like, last year they were like, I'm not really sure how to do that. What do you mean? He tells time. I mean, whatever. But 2 minutes, coach, whatever it is, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. I think the other thing you have to be careful of that happens a lot is they'll say, well, we had a kid last year that didn't work out.
Right.
Okay. Is that this kid?
Yeah.
Because they're two different kids.
Right.
So just because they both have a disability doesn't mean because it didn't work with one person, it worked with somebody else. That's the other reason it's really, really important that you match when you do it. When you say, hey, I want Jacob to do this, it's something Jacob wants to do or is going to be good at. You're not just trying to find anything because it was the closest thing or whatever, because that affects the next kid down the line.
Sure, absolutely.
And so we really want to think we're trying to change a culture. We're turning a big boat right now, right? And we're trying to get people to understand. I'm fighting it every day with employers who say, I can't afford to hire somebody with a disability. Mm-hmm. And my answer to that is you can't afford not to.
Not to, exactly.
Right? The studies show that the companies that hire people with disabilities have higher profit margins, higher net profit, right? They have lower turnover overall, not just with the people with disabilities, but overall with staff. Turnover costs $5,000 a person. That's a lot of money. If you're having trouble hiring people, get outside the box.
Right.
Stand outside the box with me. I'm never inside the box. I love it.
I love it.
But it also goes to just the culture of the community. I mean,
for sure.
They're going to want to show up for work. It's going to be a happier culture. I mean, I just noticed, just watching him be a part of that school community in a natural setting, like the kids just said, come on, Jacob, whatever they're doing, they're warming up. And, they had this teacher-student basketball game last week. Technically, was he supposed to be playing? No, but it was the students and they saw him as their peer and they wanted him to be a part of that team because he had already developed that relationship with them. He's already shown them that he has the skills, to your point. I mean, now if it was, baseball, and that's not his forte, but basketball is. So find out what it is that they like to do. And then kind of let it roll by itself.
Yeah, I think the sad thing is that it really, those opportunities really vary by school, right? Yeah. And some kids are just not getting the opportunity because the school just doesn't do it, or they don't whatever. They don't have that opportunity, or they're not a school. I mean, remember, these kids now, they've been with their peers or other students since kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's not, they know who they are. The downside is sometimes they know who they are, right? What I find is sometimes, kids will be like, well, he did this to me in 3rd grade. I'm like, in 10th grade, get over it. Are you the same person you were when you were 8? No. So
Right.
I know he pushed you when you were 8. Fine. Okay, that's why you shouldn't have made him be it and be mean and say he's always it, because he didn't understand modulation of force and he pushed you over. Oh, well, maybe you should have been it, right? But that was 10 years ago. So that's, I think,
move on.
Yeah, it's really about trying to get the kids, if the kids get it most of the time.
Right.
The adults, you got to sort of bring along. And it's finding that right coach that's going to say, this is what we're going to do. I know when I look at Liam, he's been really, really lucky to have coaches that have really just been 100% on board with him doing everything the team does, and ordering him a uniform in his size so he could play, even though he's half the size of everybody else.
Liam is our friend.
So. And Tucker didn't have those opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Tucker was the only kid with Down syndrome in his elementary school. He did not have a peer group that was even close. So he struggled socially. He gets his, community integration because he hangs out with our friends, frankly, and a lot of them love hanging out with him by himself. So they take him on his own and they go and do things. And, he goes on adventures now with his respite person. But it's really about just, for us, he's always been comfortable in the community because we've never done anything else.
Right.
We're going out to dinner, we're traveling, we're doing whatever. And I think that's one of the things that's also tough for some families. Don't do that. They think, what if I'm embarrassed, or what if they do this or that? And you really have to say, you know what, whatever.
So it's whatever fits your family, but I think you also have to try to push it, like you said, try to figure out a few different things, because you may not like to go out for dinner, but maybe your child really wants to go out for dinner. So introduce them to that experience.
And think about the skills there, right? So that, what's socially appropriate when you're eating, when you're out, what's the correct volume of your voice? What's the
ordering by themselves?
How are you maneuvering physically through the space, right? All of those things are skill builders that you're going to need in life.
Right.
There are things that we take for granted that we just know that for these kids, they don't just know.
Right.
You have to give them the practice. It's, part of this pre-ETS program is that they're looking for us to do what they call a light touch, which means you go in, you teach it, you go out. And I'm like, that's never going to work for these guys, because we have to keep going back and reassuring that, they didn't just get it for me, they got it for somebody else. If your teacher has done interview skills in your classroom, have my staff come in and interview them to see, can they do it with somebody they don't know?
Right.
Those kind of things, that is how we've set up our program, so that they have the practice. And if we do self-advocacy first, now in every other unit that we do, they're advocating. When we go on a tour of Job Corps, I'm not talking to the lady, you are. What she's asking you what you want to do. What do you think? What looks interesting? Can they answer the questions? Can they make eye contact?
Yeah.
That's tough for any kid right now, right? There used to be, this is the general mode, right? We're in phones. So to be able to have a conversation that's, not an emoji is a good thing.
Yeah. So Paula, then the next question is so what should parents do for post-secondary and transition programs in adult services agencies, in their community, for instance, your program? What do parents need to start thinking about at what certain time to think secondary or think?
For me, 21 to 22 should be all about transitioning from high school into wherever they're going to go. So you should know what you want to do and where you're headed, by 20, right? And ideally spend that last year doing that. Yeah. It doesn't work that easily. It's really difficult. I can tell you this last year, even with everything I know, and I'm in the middle of it, and I work with these agencies every day, it was still really, really painful and really difficult. So knowing what you want, again, begin with the end in mind. There are now a number of options. There's self-direction, which means you get bank of funds from DDS, and then you spend it on whatever you want for programming. You want to hire a person to take them out to the community. You want to buy a gym membership, whatever it is that you think will give this person a full week. You can do that. It's a full-time job. I'll just say, that's your choice. The second option is what's called agency with choice, which is kind of the same thing. You're building your own custom schedule, but an agency is hiring the people and taking that liability of staff off of you, and hopefully helping give you some ideas and helping you manage it a little bit. Then there's community-based day, which is what most people choose. And that's a day program, but they're out in the community. It's very much work-focused. It's volunteering, it's group-supported employment, hopefully working on skills to get competitively employed. And then there's a day hab, which would mean I don't think this person is really going to work, or they have interest in work. They just need a place to go and something to keep them busy and keep learning. And so those are sort of the options on the traditional side. And then, of course, there's all the new college programs, and there's trade schools. So there's a lot of options. It's really about knowing the support you need to be successful, and how much support you're going to need, I think, is critical, as well as the interest.
And maybe just don't be afraid to ask.
For sure.
Don't be afraid to ask that team. And, if it's trade school or college or, some straight to work, don't be afraid to ask for what you think your child is where they're going to excel.
And don't let them be excluded from career days or college visit days. Right. We, as a family, we have always, when we've been traveling, if there's a college, we're like, oh, let's go check it out. From the time my kids were little, be like, oh, we're in Burlington, let's go see UVM. Oh, we're driving by UNA. Let's just drive through, see what it's like, just so they could see what a college looked like. I don't come from a long line of college graduates. So I wanted to make sure my kids knew that one college was not the same as the other, that there were different, not just different majors, but very different fields on different campuses, and get them that experience. If they have older brothers and sisters, they're seeing that anyway. Yeah, but don't let the schools exclude them from that either, because you don't know. They could audit classes. There's a whole number of things you can do now that you couldn't do even 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Can they audit classes when they're still in high school?
What?
Can they audit classes, like, when I say high school, I'm talking about like that 20.
So a lot of those college programs are focusing on those kids that are 18 to 21.
Yeah.
So what the trend right now with high schools is to walk with your class at 18 and then go to a separate program for 18 to 21. That's all transition-based, work-based, everyday life skills. So you could stay focused on those academics until, 18 if you wanted to, and then go start to do more of the transition. A lot of people have then said that's when they're sending people to college. I'm hoping that those college programs are going to expand into adulthood, because for our kids with Down syndrome, typically they're not really quite ready.
Not at 18.
22. It'd be at 22, 24, maybe 25 when they're really like, oh, now I get it. Now I'm really ready to go to college. It's not at 18. I don't think, at least for a lot of the kids that I know. And there are some kids that can do it. And it also depends on the school. So again, we're talking about a big range of abilities. And so it's really about knowing your student and knowing what your family as well, right? What's good for your family, because let's face it, mom, dads, we're going to be driving them. We're going to be moving, right? Yeah. And there is transportation, but transportation is probably one of the biggest barriers to work and school for them, because you no longer have that entitlement of somebody's driving them.
Right.
Once you get that.
Well, you want them to be successful too. You don't want them to just go to you want them to truly be successful in that community, successful in whatever academics they're taking and job if you're pushing them just to go to college,
right,
that's probably not the right mindset. Like, you really want them to be successful there, because the idea is that hopefully they will be able to find a shared apartment or whatever, I mean, go on beyond that,
Yeah, for me, like I didn't put any agenda. I was like, let's see where we get. Let's see where we land. Let's just what you're interested in. Let's just continue to try new things and see. For Tucker, he was all about this photography, and then like 2 or 3 years, he was like, you know what? I don't want to do this for a job. I'm sick of everybody talking to me about it for a job. I just want to keep doing it for fun. And he got a job in a corporate cafeteria, and he loved it. And I was like, well, this is a lot easier for us to manage, right? Because there are a million jobs in that sector, and so that's fine. And now he's coming back around to the photography. Now he's getting more and more people's reactions, and we're talking about how are we going to sustain that business, and it's a lot of work. So I mean, you also have to be with as a parent. I mean, for me personally, I sometimes feel like it's like, oh, in order for my kid to do this, we're going to trade lives, right? I'm going to give up my life to manage his life and his life to be great. That, for me personally, that just doesn't make sense. I'm not one to do that. There are a lot of people that are. I think it's sort of, you have to find that balance of like, okay, if he's going to do this, I am not going to spend every Saturday at a show with him. Right. Who could support him to do that, but he can still do it. And trying to figure out how you're going to make it work long term, because I'm not going to be around forever either. Right. So like, that's why we haven't done self-direction, because I'm like, I don't need a full-time job. I have 40 something kids on my kid here.
You have a full-time
job. Segment. Yeah. So I don't know if I want to manage a whole schedule for him as well. Right. And we're trying to strike that balance, and we're still figuring it out. He turned 22 in January. He's in a program that he's not thrilled with. We're trying to figure out how we're going to balance that out for the structure that he needs, and also have him doing something that he's interested in. So it's not an easy transition, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to be wrapping up, but I wanted to I think we have some people that are watching. So I just want to put it out to the audience. For those of you that are watching this live, if you do have any questions of Paula, or if you are watching this on the replay, Paula will still be able to access the chat with us. So if you have any questions, please pop it in the chat screen. And we will probably be wrapping this up. Paula, can you just let us know what Tucker's website is?
Sure. It's tuckercollinsphotography.com.
Awesome.
Okay. I just wanted to put that into the chat for people to go. He is very talented. I wish I could show you some of his work from what she did in a presentation, but perfect example are those pictures right behind her. So.
Right. Yeah, they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, and click on his website so that way you can check it out.
Yeah. Oh, we do have a question. Oh, okay. No, it just says thank you. This has been very informative. So you're welcome, Lisa.
Yeah, it has been. It has been. So, well, Paula, thank you so much for your time. And if there are questions, maybe Marla can get them to you, and we can answer them on the on the backside. So yeah, I know, my son's 11. He's in 5th grade, so we've got a few years. But like you said, it goes quick. Marla, you're already ready. He's 14. You're having a meeting here pretty soon. So. It happens quick.
But I think it's also, use the people ahead of you. I mean, that's we've already been through it. So the stuff that like I said, I was always like, what didn't I know I was supposed to ask? Right. And I had people helping me all along the way saying, oh no, don't do this. When you do the guardianship, make sure you know this or that. Yeah. And that's critical, because you can't know everything, but you can't know where to find it.
Well, you don't want to do it alone. And that's why they say, get your tribe, and I know yourself and Cheryl, and there's a whole bunch of people that are ahead of us that I always go to. Yeah. So like Paula said, don't be afraid to ask some of the parents of the older kids, what did you do? How did you handle this? Because honestly, they want to share.
It may be completely opposite of what you feel is right for you in the end, but you at least have somebody to throw ideas off of or ask. Like, sometimes it might be like, my school's telling me this, and it's like, no. Or it may be like, that's awesome, take it if they'll offer it. You never know, but at least you only know your sort of world that you're in, because that's where you're at. And you don't know what other schools are doing. I know sometimes schools are like, we're doing this awesome thing, and you think, yeah, that was awesome, and then you talk to somebody else who had the real awesome, right? Yeah. And like, oh wait, that was cool, but we're going to take it a step further. And I'm sure I'm probably not popular in school, but whatever. Because I'd always just send stuff in and be like, hey, this is even with this adult program now. I went to the collaborative that they use, found the 8 companies that I know he could work for with the skills he had and the experience he had from high school, and said, call these 8. because he's all what he's been doing. And
that goes to what Brian and I have said probably almost in every one of our shows, is that you are an equal member of that team. So even though they're going to give you their list,
absolutely,
you need to show up with your list.
Oh yeah, take the big chair. That's what I always say.
Yep.
There's one big chair in the room, sit in it.
Yeah.
And as I said, I think it is really important to start the meeting with something about your student that A, they may not know, or that B, reminds them that he's a person outside of their classroom. So he's a person, or she's a person with skills and a life that may be more exciting than theirs at this point. You know what I mean? Right. In my kid's case, he does something you would have no idea if you met him when he's, being a pill, or, doesn't really feel like doing what you want, and he's being difficult, and he could never do blah, blah, blah. And I come in with a book showing you, his paddle boarding around the lake and a 3-mile paddleboard. And they're like, what? I can't get this kid to do anything in gym. Or,
Well, it's also nice that if you think about that, take that one step further, Paula, because in my head, I'm thinking about like the coach. So maybe having some testimonials or something from people outside of the school, the coaches or whatever, who can say he was an awesome team leader or whatever, so that it doesn't always look like you're staging, like, oh, stand up on that paddleboard there, Tucker.
Sometimes some goofy stuff where they're like, he's always disruptive. Okay, well, then put him in charge.
Exactly.
How do you disrupt it if he's in charge, right? Make him the expert. Do some. I just gave you all these things that he does that other kids in your class may have never been exposed to. Ask him to teach a lesson on how to do that. Ask him to lead the day. Because this is an issue we're having right now. Is a lot of kids with disabilities are used to people telling them what to do, so they will literally wait until someone tells them what to do. I do not have that child. He happens to be his mother's kid, right? So he will find something to do. So my advice was, if there's someone that needs help, have him help that person. Don't let instead of letting him get bored, give him something to do, put him in charge. All these things that, again, are skills if you just pay attention. But if you're just focusing on the fact that, oh, he's playing his music too loud, I'm like, okay, well, why is that? Why he's playing his music? Because he has nothing else to do.
Right, exactly. Wait, I have a question. And it's a really good question. So I want to ask this question from Lisa. She's in California, and she believes transition planning starts at 16 in California. That seems a little late to her. What are the benefits of starting transition planning at 14? Are high school students in your states able to get supported job training before 18 while they're still in high school?
So, Lisa, it used to be 16 here too. They just changed it to 14. And what they're asking us to do with the 14-year-olds is really just expose them to work and expose them to different kinds of careers, because to make sure, again, that if they decide to bag at the grocery store, it's because they want to bag at the grocery store, not because it's the only opportunity that they get what they got, or the only career they've ever heard of. I got some heat a couple of weeks ago from one of our teachers because I did a lesson in careers, and I had scuba divers, actors, and like all this. She was like, that wasn't relevant to my students. I go, I disagree, because you might have a student that doesn't even speak, that's an amazing swimmer, that could be a recovery person on a dive team. So sorry if that wasn't what you thought, but I wanted them to see that there are all different, some weird careers, some things that you don't think of as a job that people get paid for, being an actor or whatever. So in terms of supports, it is more, it's all school-based before 18. We are not here in Massachusetts able to do it before 18. They will push it back to the school almost always.
Yeah.
As much as we've tried not to. We do in our program, we do have a couple of opportunities, a couple spots for internships, and we're doing a couple paid internships this summer for some students, but it's fairly rare, and we're supporting them.
Yeah. Well, I know even like here in Massachusetts, I mean, with Coladi's Cookies, I mean, she's got like her program, her like internship program. So, I mean, maybe if you guys are actively involved in your state Down syndrome organization, if you have one, look to see what it is that they might be offering. Because I know they ask for people to apply for that program.
Well, I guess the other thing is, back to networking, right?
Right.
The ideal thing is natural supports. Natural supports is somebody in there who just is going to help no matter what, right? We know in classrooms there's always the girl, and that's not sexist, that's just fact. That's the mother hen, right? That wants to help and is going to be the person that they're going to be their friend because how that student feels valued. And in the workplace, it's the same way. There's a lot of times somebody that just wants to help. And if a business can incent them to be that person. Walgreens is a huge example. They had a fulfillment center. They had an enclave of people who came into work. And long story short, they blew that out. And now it's a huge part of their workforce. And they actually incentivize people on different teams to be the lead for the people with disabilities, to give them the job supports that they need. The other thing is that job supports, people think about accommodations and they think it's expensive. Most accommodations don't cost anything. And over half of them are under $500. Sometimes as simple as a chart. I mean, in our office, we have two guys who come in and clean. One has a notebook with all of his things that he has to do, and he just checks them off. The other one literally needs somebody to go with him and step by step tell him what he's going to do. And they're just different accommodations for them to get the job done, but they're both good cleaners and they get it done.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, this is great, Paula. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
thank
you being here and sharing a wealth of information. And like we said, for those of you that are watching this on the replay, if you do have questions of Paula, please still ask them in the chat. I will get them to her as they come in. And make sure you check out Tucker's website. Because like I said, I mean, as you can see behind her, he is quite the photographer. So thank you again, Paula.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Paula.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, Marla, we have another show in the books.
We do. April
We do.
9th.
And we do. We have one coming up April 9th. And so be sure to tune in on April 9th. And also, if you are watching this either live or on the replay, share it with those that you think would benefit. If you know a friend or a family member who has a child with Down syndrome and they're getting ready to transition, make sure you share this with them because there's a lot of great information here. So, Marla?
Yeah, and she did share some information in her presentation, like some links that I can share with you guys. So,
awesome.
But yeah, I thought this was a great presentation.
All righty. Well, Marla, in this age of coronavirus, keep your hands clean. So, and really, truly, I hope you guys are all doing well out there, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, Brian. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.